She scrolls through his Instagram for the fourth time this week. Nothing. No pictures of her, no captions, no hint she exists. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a question starts eating at her. Is he hiding me, or is he protecting something neither of us has said out loud yet? Here's what nobody tells women about older men and social media. The ones who post the least are sometimes the ones who feel the most. And the ones who post the most are sometimes performing for an audience that means more to them than she ever will. You've been taught that silence equals shame, that a man who doesn't tag you, doesn't claim you, doesn't matter. But what if that rule, the one you learned from watching other relationships, doesn't apply to a man who's already lived through the version of love that gets destroyed the second it becomes public? By the end of this video, you will understand exactly which category he falls into, and you might not like what you find. If you're watching this, you're probably somewhere between confused and quietly panicking. You're dating or falling for a man who's a little older, a little more settled, a little more guarded than the men you're used to, and he's good to you. He shows up. He calls when he says he will. He looks at you like you're the only person in the room, but then you open your phone and there's nothing. No evidence, no proof to the outside world that this thing between you two is real. So you start doing what every woman in your position does. You start building theories. Maybe he's embarrassed. Maybe there's someone else. Maybe you're the secret, not the priority. And I want to stop you right there because before we go any further, I need you to understand something about the psychology of men who've lived longer, loved harder, and lost more than the 20-something guys posting couple selfies every Tuesday. Older men don't operate on the same emotional economy as younger men. A 24-year-old posts you because his ego needs the validation of his friends seeing him with someone attractive. That's not love, that's social currency. A man in his 30s, 40s, or 50s who has already been through a divorce, a painful breakup, a custody battle, or a public relationship that fell apart in front of everyone he knows. That man has learned something the younger guy hasn't. He's learned that broadcasting a relationship doesn't protect it, it exposes it. And exposure to a man who has already been burned feels less like romance and more like risk. Here's my promise to you today. By the time this video ends, you are going to understand the real psychological reasons behind why older men withhold public affirmation. And more importantly, you're going to know exactly how to tell the difference between a man who's protecting something precious and a man who's protecting himself from consequences. Because those two men look identical on the outside. Both go quiet online. Both give you excuses when you ask. Both make you feel like you're overreacting for even bringing it up. But their intentions are worlds apart. One is building a fortress around something he's terrified of losing. The other is keeping an exit open in case something better walks through the door. I want to plant two seeds in your mind right now, and we're going to come back to both of them before this video is done. The first seed, the reason he's silent online might have nothing to do with you and everything to do with a version of himself he's still trying to unlearn. The second seed, there is one specific behavior, not a word, not an excuse, but an actual behavior that separates the man who's protecting the relationship from the man who's protecting his options. Most women miss it completely because it doesn't look like a red flag. It looks like consideration. Stay with me because we're about to walk through exactly what's happening in his mind when he chooses privacy over proof. And by the end, you'll never look at a quiet Instagram the same way again. Let's start with what you've probably been told because it's everywhere. Every relationship page, every group chat, every well-meaning friend has said some version of the same thing. If he's not posting you, he's hiding you. And if he's hiding you, he's ashamed of you. It's simple. It's satisfying. And it's wrong more often than it's right. Here's the truth almost nobody talks about. Public posting isn't a measure of love. It's a measure of comfort with exposure. And comfort with exposure has almost nothing to do with how someone feels about you. It has everything to do with how someone learned to survive being seen. Think about attachment theory for a second, stripped of the textbook language. A man who grew up watching relationships get picked apart by outsiders, family members who criticized his choices, an ex who used social media as a weapon during a breakup, friends who ruined a good thing with their opinions. That man develops something psychologists call protective avoidance. It's not that he avoids intimacy. He avoids the audience. Because in his history, the audience is where good things went to die. Pause for effect. Now, here's where it gets uncomfortable. Cognitive dissonance is working against you right now, and you probably don't even realize it. You want to believe two things at once: that he's genuinely into you, and that his silence is suspicious. And your brain is desperately trying to make those two beliefs fit together. So it invents a story, usually the worst one, because uncertainty is more painful than a bad answer, and your mind would rather hand you a painful conclusion than sit in the unknown. Let me give you a real scenario. A woman, we'll call her Danielle, dated a man 12 years older than her for 8 months. He never posted her, not once. She spent half the relationship convinced she was a secret. Then, 4 months in, she found out why. His ex-wife had used their family social media to publicly humiliate him during their divorce. Screenshots of arguments, subtweets about his failures as a husband, tagged photos designed to make him look cruel in front of 200 mutual friends. He wasn't hiding Danielle. He was protecting her from ever becoming ammunition the way he once was. That's ego protection, and it's one of the most misunderstood forces in male psychology. It's not about looking good to strangers online. It's about never again feeling like his private life is public property for someone else to weaponize. But, and this is the part I need you to really hear, that same behavior, silence, and privacy can also come from a completely different place. A man who is quietly keeping his options open will use the exact same explanation. I just don't like putting my relationship online. He'll say it with the same calm voice, the same reasonable tone. The words are identical. The intention is not. So how do you tell them apart if the excuse sounds the same coming out of both men's mouths? You don't listen to what he says about privacy. You watch what privacy actually protects. Here's exactly how to find out which man you're dealing with. Not by asking him directly, because he'll give you the same rehearsed answer either way, but by observing 4 specific behaviors over the next 30 days. Step 1. Check for private inclusion, not public inclusion. The action is simple. Does he introduce you into his real offline world? Has he told his close friends about you? Does his sister know your name? Has he mentioned you to his kids, if he has them, in an age-appropriate way? This is the actual test, because a man protecting the relationship still lets the people who matter know it exists. He just doesn't need strangers to confirm it. The psychology here is straightforward. Private inclusion requires vulnerability with people whose opinions actually affect his life. Public posting requires nothing but a caption. It's low-risk performance versus high-risk honesty. The common mistake women make here is settling for words instead of proof. He says, "My friends know about you," but you've never met them, never been mentioned in a group chat he shows you, never been invited to anything involving his circle. Don't accept the sentence. Look for the evidence. Step 2. Watch how he responds when you bring it up, once calmly, without accusation. The action is to ask him one time, without a tone of interrogation, something like, "I've noticed you keep our relationship pretty private online. What's that about for you?" The psychology behind this is that his emotional reaction will tell you more than his words. A man protecting something precious will often get slightly vulnerable, maybe even explain something painful from his past. A man protecting his options will get defensive, dismissive, or annoyed that you even asked, because the question threatens the exact flexibility he's been relying on. The common mistake is asking this question during an argument, when defensiveness is a given regardless of his intentions. Ask it in a calm moment, and the response becomes far more diagnostic. Step 3. Notice whether the privacy is mutual or one-directional. The action here is to pay attention to whether he treats his entire life this way or just the relationship. Does he also keep his finances, his family situation, his day-to-day private? Or is the relationship the one specific thing he keeps off the radar while everything else about his life is visible? A generally private man who happens to also keep his relationship private is consistent. A man who posts his gym routine, his dinners, his weekends with friends, but somehow never you, isn't private. He's selective. And selective omission is a decision, not a personality trait. The common mistake is assuming all quiet men are equally trustworthy. Privacy as a lifestyle and privacy as a strategy look the same until you compare it against everything else he does share. Step 4. Give it time before you assign meaning. The action is patience, specifically, resisting the urge to demand a public post as proof of commitment within the first few months. The psychology behind this one matters most for you, not him. Rushing someone into public visibility before trust is established doesn't create security. It creates resentment because you're essentially asking him to perform certainty before he's actually felt it settle in his own chest. The common mistake, and this is the biggest one, is women turning a request for reassurance into an ultimatum too early, which pushes emotionally guarded men further into the exact avoidance you're trying to fix. Ironically, demanding proof accelerates the withdrawal it's trying to prevent. If you run through all four of these and what you find is inclusion in his real life, a vulnerable rather than defensive reaction, consistent privacy across every part of his life, and steady emotional investment over time, you are very likely dealing with a man protecting something he considers sacred. If instead you find isolation from his circle, defensiveness, selective omission, and stagnant emotional progress after months, that's not privacy. That's a placeholder relationship, and you deserve to know the difference before you invest another year of your life into finding out the hard way. I know what it feels like to sit with uncertainty, to refresh a profile, to reread a caption for hidden meaning, to compare yourself to every woman who ever got publicly claimed by someone else's boyfriend. That anxiety is real, and I'm not going to tell you it doesn't matter. It does. Wanting to be acknowledged is not insecurity. It's a basic human need to feel chosen in a way other people can see. But here's the reframe I need you to sit with. Visibility was never the actual thing you wanted. What you wanted was certainty. You wanted proof that this man sees a future with you, that you're not wasting time on something that will quietly dissolve the moment it gets inconvenient. Somewhere along the way, a hashtag became the stand-in for that certainty, because it's easy to measure and painful uncertainty is not. But a caption has never once stopped a man from leaving. And silence online has never once stopped a man from staying. Rhetorical question for you. How many couples have you watched post every single moment of their relationship online, only to announce a breakup 8 months later? And how many quiet, private couples have you seen still together 5, 10, 15 years down the road, never once turning their love into content? Public proof and private commitment are not the same currency, and the sooner you stop trading one for the other, the sooner you'll stop measuring your worth by his settings menu. If you take one thing from this video, let it be this. A man who is building something real with you is not thinking about his audience, he's thinking about you specifically. In the room, in the conversation, in the version of his future, he's slowly letting you into. Some men show that through public celebration. Older men, especially ones who've survived heartbreak in front of an audience once already, often show it through quiet, deliberate protection instead. Learn to read the actual behavior in front of you instead of the absence of a behavior you were told to expect. Give yourself permission to stop interpreting silence as rejection. Give him the room to build trust at the pace his history requires, while you watch, closely, clearly, without illusions, for the 4 signs we just walked through. You are not asking too much by wanting to feel secure. You are simply learning to look for security in the right place instead of the loudest place. And if, after real time and real observation, what you find is a man who keeps you in every part of his life except the part strangers can see, that's not a red flag. That might be one of the most quietly loyal things a man can offer you. If this gave you a new way to see him or to see yourself in this, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments, is he protecting the relationship or protecting his options? I want to hear which one you're seeing.